Here is one of the easiest things to hack your brain. And it's actually probably not something you have considered, although it's in the realm of the things you probably already have considered. It's about food. And especially it's about not eating food. The thing is, if you eat something, then you only have a certain fixed amount of blood in your system. And a certain fixed amount of blood goes into your digestive tract whenever you eat something. And whenever you fast, you have the blood available for the rest of the body. Therefore, if you are awake and you fast, your brain actually works better. Then there is another effect. If you go into fasting and actually train your fat burning, there's actually something called ketones. And what this means is the brain runs on glucose, which is basically carbs, very easy carbs, are also called sugar. If it runs on ketones, so comparing glycogen with ketones, your brain can run up to 75% on ketones. And normally it runs on glycogen to 100%. The thing about glycogen is, the glycogen actually is from your bloodstream. And the thing is, whenever you eat something sugary, for example, of course, your glycogen in your blood spikes because it's very easily converted into glycogen in the blood. So the sugar basically goes right into the blood and then it spikes. And then there is insulin, which is released, and then it takes the sugar out of the blood into the cells. This could be the muscles, that could be the glycogen stores, it could also be the fat cells if you ate basically too much for your body to store it without the fat cells. So now, what happens when you fast is the following. Actually, instead of burning glycogen, so if your liver glycogen is depleted, which is the only store that's available for all the organs when it comes to glycogen, and so the glycogen stored in the muscles is only for the muscles, and it's the brain cannot use the glycogen stored in your legs, for example, the leg muscles. The thing is, now what happens when you fast is when you fast frequently, what happens is that you train your fat burning. So actually the fat burning becomes more efficient. So instead of burning carbs, you actually burn fat, which is of course also something many people try to do, but for other reasons. But the thing I want to now focus on is actually fat burning itself. When you burn fat, what actually happens is that you split the fat into glycogen again. So, but if you split fat and make glycogen out of it again, what also happens is that there is a byproduct, and this byproduct is called a ketone. A ketone body is something that, because of evolution, our brain and our body also can use. So what happens is, with every unit of glycogen, it's the other way around. With every unit of, it's the right way around. For every unit of glycogen you have in your brain and that gets used in your brain, you need a certain amount of oxygen. Now the thing is, per unit of oxygen you actually need for your brain, and your rate of oxygen, or the absolute amount of oxygen, or much more the rate. So either the absolute amount of oxygen per unit of time, or just the rate, because this is called the rate, is kind of fixed, because you will not suddenly increase your oxygen intake by 200%. Of course you could theoretically, but not. We just assume you're normal and don't do anything differently. So now the thing is, with every unit of oxygen, the ketone body provides your brain for more energy. So without doing actually anything, apart from not eating, which is not doing anything, but just avoiding doing something, what actually happens is that you, for one, have all the blood that's now available for the rest of your body, also your muscles. For example, if you think about working out, your muscles actually get pumped. But the thing is, the blood actually has to come from somewhere. So if you're eating before, there is not as much blood in the muscles, for example, when working out. And it's the same. It's not really the same with the brain. I don't know if there's more blood in the brain, but that's kind of the thing, that there's just more blood available. Therefore, also there are more nutrients provided, because it's just you don't have this thing in the middle of you that is basically taking away blood from all the rest of your body. So now what happens is, on ketones your brain actually runs better. You can think more clearly. And also there's another psychological effect. Since many of us ate basically for their entire lives, maybe 2 to 4 to 5 to 3, it depends on the person of course, but the thing is, since many of us did these, actually you first have to become fat adapted, which means your fat burning process actually has to increase in efficiency. And this happens whenever you go into the fat burning process. So either by fasting or going on a ketogenic diet, that's basically avoiding carbs. Therefore, you just use either the external fat from or protein for energy use, or the internal fat you already have stored under your skin somewhere, and maybe also in internal organs. So now the thing that's the easiest hack when it comes to brain efficiency or for brain processing power is just fasting. Fasting during the day, which I tried for extensive period of time already. I switch things up in between, but that's basically the easiest brain hack you could possibly want. The thing also is, I mean, it's not like from one day to the other, you should start like fasting through the entire day and then maybe only eating for dinner. But the thing is, what you could try to do is, for example, so this thing is called intermittent fasting, which is basically just delaying breakfast a little bit more, maybe delaying it in such a way that it's then your lunch again. So it's basically leaving out breakfast, because what happens is that most of us tend to have dinner and then they sleep. And if you sleep, you most of the time do not eat. And therefore, whenever you sleep, you're already like making progress in the fasting hours without you doing actually anything, without you trying to avoid food, because you're basically unconscious, or you are conscious in your dream. But that's not the point of this video. The point of this video is that the easiest way to get into this new kind of thinking, and it's actually kind of a new way of thinking. So what happened with me was, so now this is kind of personal, I guess, but so in my experience, you just see more things. And if you, for example, go on carbs again, and if you have like a huge meal of carbs, then of course you have the digestion part, but there's also the part where your brain just runs on carbs again. And I think, so often after eating carbs, for example, you get just dizzy and you're just like, you just want to sit around, and you're not like, oh yeah, I want to record like 10 other videos, or I want to do this 10 other projects for work, or I want to study for the next 3 days, because there are all these fascinating things about the world. But when it comes to being on ketones, when it comes to being fasting, and maybe also the psychological effect of just avoiding food, it's as if you're kind of another person almost, because you then also of course have just much more time. Because if you think about it, like most of us spend between 30 minutes maybe to 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, if you also consider the cooking, every single day on food. And you only have like, I mean, it depends on how much work you do per day and how long you sleep. But the thing is, what I try to see is that there are 8 working hours, which basically are flexible hours, and everything else is kind of fixed. Working out is fixed because if you leave it out, your health gets worse. Dinner, for example, is fixed because if you leave it out, you don't get any nutrients. Of course, you can fast for an extended period of time, but it's not like the default scenario. The default scenario is the thing you can do every single day, and it's not like the exception. So now, what this also adds is, it makes your brain more efficient. That's the first step. But the second step is you just have more time. Because if you only eat once or maybe twice in the evening, I mean, you can eat multiple times in the evening or in the late afternoon. It's just, the first thing is about just shifting the meals into a certain time frame. And the next step is then to maybe just make it one big meal or make it 2 big meals. This is called, so one big meal is called OMAD, 1 meal a day, and 2 meals, there's no real name for it apart from intermittent or time restricted feeding. But consider these tools, consider at least trying it for once, and try how your brain actually changes, instead of relying on something like caffeine, which is also a brain enhancer, kind of, but it only works in the short term. Because, for example, the halfway time of caffeine is, I don't exactly remember it right now, but the thing is, if you drink coffee at a certain part of the day, whenever you are sleeping, so after a certain amount of time has passed, you still have half of the caffeine in your system. And it's basically, it was like 8 hours or something like this, or maybe even more. This basically means whenever you're sleeping, you still have caffeine in the system that's basically telling you, no, don't go to sleeping. So therefore, your sleep is kind of just compromised. And this will actually accumulate over the years and just makes you well, not recover that well. And there are also, of course, other things connected to it, but it's just about caffeine. So try to improve your mental and maybe also just your time management performance with fasting and see how it goes. If you have any questions, just type them on any platform, like on YouTube in the comments, on TikTok also in the comments, and I will try to answer them, maybe with a future video or maybe via text.